Legolas, what does this say? Yeah, that's right! Good boy! You. Behold, everyone, natural lighting within one of my YouTube videos, finally. It's so nice to have a day off. But, yeah, enjoying it, and figured since I have all this free time, let's do another part within my vinyl collection. I believe this is now part 13 within the series, and we're still only scratching the surface of the D portion within my collection. But other than that, the other thing I wanted to bring up, in the previous part, a lot of people were commenting about when I'll do a video pertaining to all the box sets, because I know I got the Windier box set that came in last week, and this just actually came in yesterday. It's the latest album by Harakiri for the Sky. I know you can't see much, it's all just black, but that came in, and now I've noticed I got quite a handful of box sets that I could be talking about that I'll do its own video in the future, so look out for that. But anyway, besides that, what's going to be playing in the background is something that I recently discovered that just blew me away, and it's a 2021 release, and it's the sophomore full-length by Deteriorate. Oh my god, French fucking black metal. Like, guys, what, if anyone who's watching this is from France, it's like, what are you guys eating? What are you guys doing? Like, why is it every French black metal band that I come across over the past decade that's formed is just like always so freaking good? This is another example to prove my point that the French do it better. Anyways, after stating the obvious that the French do it better, let's get back to showing some records within this series. Like always, 15 records will be shown. In the last part, we ended it with Depeche Mode, and this part we're going to start it with just one of their albums that I have, that being the latest full-length by Depeche Mode, Spirit. Honestly, I'm quite disappointed with this full-length. I was always hyped for always something new with Depeche Mode, and besides the first third of this album, that being the tracks Going Backwards, Where's the Revolution, The Worst Crime, and Scum, honestly, the rest of this album is kind of a snooze fest. Like, there's no hooks, there's no melodies, there's no rhythms that really grab me like anything else that they've done in previous works. That, I don't know, it's just, I guess, one of those albums to me that's a disappointment that I just keep around for the collection's sake. That I haven't given up hope with Depeche Mode. I mean, I'll always be interested in whatever they do from here on onwards, because I've been a fan of them my whole life. But Spirit, I would definitely say, is one of my least favorites if I were to ever do like a list of Depeche Mode albums. But yeah, it was released back in 2017. I got it on release day because I was just that hyped for it. But anyway, besides the layout and packaging, you got artwork, backside with the 3 members and track listings. Comes on a gatefold double LP with printed inner sleeves, so side A and B with lyrics, and side C and D. Comes on a standard black vinyl, but side D is etched with just basically the album title, that being Spirit. Proceeding on next to one of the very few dungeon synth projects I have within my collection. I have everything by them, which isn't saying much, because it was a short-lived project, but probably one of the most respected within the genre. And that would be Depressive Silence. This is their release, Morning. Originally released back in 1996, and this is the LP variant, as you can clearly see. Put out through Unborn Productions back in, I believe, 2018. And honestly, anything put out through Depressive Silence on LP, you better get it right away, because that shit sells out so quick. And I remember getting into Dungeon Synth when I found out about it, because it was around the time Old Tower was getting a lot of hype. And I was fascinated with just the genre, just to know what it is. And whenever I feel like people discover a new genre, we always want to kind of go like head first into it, thinking we're going to discover all these new sounds and all these creative artists. And for a lot of people, including myself, I feel like we just rose right back up to the surface and kind of got our fix with it. Because you start to realize that a lot of dungeon synth projects sound identical. The whole, like, you know, it's trying to be you know, like all mythical and old and eerie, and synthesizers just make up the atmosphere, and it's like a slow burner, and it's trying to recapture, like, you know, the glory days of when it first started, all trying to be like Mortis ripoffs, basically, is what a lot of dungeon synth projects are. And for me personally, I think Depressive Silence is truly the kings of dungeon synth, because they put so much more emphasis on classical than just, you know, synthesizers making up the atmosphere and that's it. Along with the fact too that they're not afraid to throw in some harsh vocals every now and then to add to the eerie, dark vibe that they create with it. That overall it is just stellar stuff, and in my personal view, this is the best project to start out with if you want to get into dungeon synth and then immediately get bored with it like a week later. But yeah, I'm pretty sure they keep copies still available on Born Productions, because I know there was a repress for this one, because this is the first press. Then a repress came out which is identical to the layout and everything else with this. But yeah, besides that, you have the artwork, backside with the track listings, gorgeous painting for the back cover. Comes on a standard black vinyl, but the label right here is of the original artwork for this release. Continuing on with even more Depressive Silence, this is The Darkened Empires. This was a repress put out through Final Agony, I think one of the last releases put out through Final Agony until they changed it to Black Omen. And it's remastered as well too, and it sounds absolutely awesome, this remaster right here. The only difference between this release and the one I just showed is they really utilize a lot more piano work on this. Obviously, yes, synthesizers are going to be used because it's dungeon synth, but they put more emphasis with this release on the classical aspect. That honestly, this is probably my favorite dungeon synth release by Depressive Silence. Thus, by default, it's my favorite dungeon synth release in general. Like, honestly, I can't stress it enough. All you really need with this genre is the releases by Depressive Silence, and you're basically set. So yeah, other than that, you have artwork, backside with track listings with the band members. This is the limited variant on white, limited to 150 copies. Then I have the two-way split between Depressive Silence and Mightiest. This was the first release I ever got by Depressive Silence, put out through Go to Warwick's, and I was just hyped for the fact that finally I was able to get an LP variant of a Depressive Silence release, and that's all that really mattered to me. Because Mightiest is kind of like a run-of-the-mill black metal band with a bit of thrash metal, and it's quite the oddball of a split. I mean, you got a dungeon synth project and like a blackened thrash project on each side, so quite the toss-up. But yeah, really nothing else to say other than the Depressive Silence side is where it's at. I will say, however, another thing that a lot of people bring up with this, I know the band Mightiest got really pissed off by it, is Go to Warwick's spelt the band name wrong. If I could just get this fucking Obi strip kind of like a little bit more off to the side. It's Migthies, and apparently how the band spells it is without the H. So they got pretty pissed off at that when they found out about this release, and even claimed that it's like a bootleg. I don't know. I just remember seeing a post by the band on their Facebook like a few years ago, and there was just all stupid drama bullshit surrounding it. But yeah, other than that, as you would guess, it's put out through Go to Warwick, so good luck finding a copy. But yeah, as for the layout and packaging, you have artwork right here. And I actually will say with the Obi strip, this is probably the best looking one, because with the whole like foil print they got on it, really adds to the aesthetic with this. Then you have the Depressive Silence side of it. Double LP on plain black vinyl. It does come with an insert sheet with just all notes on one side for Mightiest, and the same deal only with the Depressive Silence side. And the final thing I have pertaining to Depressive Silence is the last release they ever did. It's their self-titled back from 1997. Originally this release was on 7-inch that thankfully they did a repress for this, because the 7-inch release for this goes for just dumb money online, alright? I think Last time I checked, it's like $200 for a 7-inch record. Like that's fucking insane. And I was just so stoked to see that this finally got a repress. Obviously it's remastered because, as you can clearly see, they put it on a 12-inch, and it only has 2 tracks, that being Lost in My Dreams and Dark Soul. Both tracks roughly around the 10-minute mark, and each track is just glorious dungeon synth with that kind of like really dark and twisted and eerie classical edge that Depressive Silence has always utilized for their short runtime. That really makes them quite the standout, along with the harsh vocals, or the black metal, shrieks as you want to call it, that add to the atmosphere. Just overall, Depressive Silence was the total package for dungeon synth. But yeah, just so stoked again to see that I finally got a repress. So you have artwork, backside with track listings, and this is the special edition on gray vinyl, I believe limited to 200 copies. Next up is some Australian black metal greatness, that being the debut full length by Destroyer 666 with Unchain the Wolves. Incredible blend of black metal and thrash metal, and the biggest shocker to me is the compositional work on here is just absolutely incredible. Like, it's just professionally well written, yet it doesn't lack that savage aggression that you would want with this hybrid sound of black metal and thrash metal. Like, they knocked it so out of the park with this release that it's just undeniable. Unchain the Wolves is the absolute best by Destroyer 666. Don't even try to debate me on it, because I've always seen debates of how like either Unchain the Wolves or Phoenix Rising is considered like back and forth between the best, and for me, Unchain the Wolves is far superior to Phoenix Rising. I mean, tracks on here like Australian and Antichrist, Satan's Hammer, which is an incredible track, Tyranny of the Inevitable, Damnation's Pride, Onward to Arc Toga. Just, it is just so good. The compositional work, again, I can't stress it enough, for a black thrash album is just absolutely undeniably incredible with this release right here. And it's a must listen, I feel like, if you're a fan of either black metal or thrash metal. But yep, it's a Hell's Headbangers repress, so more than likely how Hell's Headbangers are, they have loads of copies still in print there. As for the layout, you have artwork right here with the spot gloss on the wolf, which looks pretty neat. Backside with track listings. Comes on a gatefold. Like always, Hell's Headbangers likes to spoil all their buyers who buy vinyl, so it comes with an A2 poster of the artwork, and this LP variant comes on semi-translucent blue. Next up is the compilation by Deteriorate, that being Rotting in Hell and the demos. So this was put out through The Crypt back in 2018, and I got a copy about a handful of months ago, as they're still keeping copies still in print on The Crypt, so get them there. And Deteriorate was a death metal band formed in, I believe, Pennsylvania, that was active during the early 90s to mid 90s. And yeah, this compilation right here is just truly ass-kicking death metal, straight to the point, unadulterated, and just very brooding and just evil and visceral, just the way it should be for old school death metal. I mean, the artwork itself should just basically tell you what this album is going to sound like. And it sucks that they really didn't do all that much, because this compilation is basically everything they ever did. Because sure, they did have a sophomore full-length that was released, I believe, like in the mid-90s, and it was basically them changing their sound to black metal, and I'm assuming by that they're trying to capitalize on the whole black metal sound that was kind of, trendy to an extent in the underground, and it just was so run-of-the-mill for them, their sophomore full-length. Whereas this right here, though doing absolutely nothing new, it just plays to their strengths, because they did it in such a very pulverizing, just brooding way, that I feel like people who enjoy the first full-length by Convulse can definitely find a lot to admire with this full-length right here. So again, The Crypt still carries copies of this absolute banger of a hidden gem within early 90s death metal. So as for the layout and packaging, you have artwork, which again, love this. Backside comes on a gatefold. Double LP, but my vinyl edition comes on like this red with black splatter on one side, and the other side is kind of like red and gold with black splatter. Looks really killer. Alright, so next up is a band that I've never talked about here on this channel, and I've just recently got this vinyl about maybe 3 weeks ago, so it's quite convenient that it lands at this spot within the series, and that would be The Devil's Blood with their last full length, The Thousandfold Epic Century. I remember so many times watching Dank Buds and Black Metal, he would talk about these guys and always say it's like the best thing he's ever heard, and it's like his all-time favorite music project. And at the time this was released, I know this was like early 2010s, and I didn't see him talk about it until around like 2015. And at the time I really was quite confused by this. I really wasn't a fan of it, because it's a blend of like occult rock and like psychedelic rock that typically I'm not a fan of it. I've never really cared for occult rock and psychedelic rock, but this just really kind of appeals a lot, it seems, to metal fans. Like a majority of the Devil's Blood's fan base seems to be metal fans, and I feel like it's because it has a very jam out factor to it that just sometimes borderlines on like the heavy metal factor, but doesn't lose sight of the fact that it's still like an occult rock band that's very trance inducing, but like in a jam out type of way. Like, I don't know, I'm not really the best when talking about this genre, because I think this is like the first time I've ever talked about an occult rock band on my channel, but yeah, this really won me over hard. I know I'm really late to the party because this band disbanded like almost 10 years ago, and they've all been doing like their own separate projects. But yeah, the guitar riffs on here, the singing on here is just so enthralling and enticing, and it's just like, I can definitely see why it appeals to a lot of metal fans, even though it's a psychedelic occult rock band. Just overall stellar stuff. And I got my copy, believe it or not, through Indie Merch, which is typically not a store I shop at, which I was surprised they had copies. So if you want to get copies, Indie Merch still carries them. As for the layout and packaging, this is like the third press, which is identical to all the previous presses, obviously besides the special editions. So you have artwork, backside of the track listings, comes on a gatefold. This, however, does come with a big-ass booklet with really trippy, psychedelic, ritual artwork, just basically on every single page. I mean, you kind of get the gist of it. Double LP both come on standard black vinyl, but they're printed on a sleeve, so here's one of them with that artwork, and the other one with this artwork, and the other sides are both black. Next up is Devilmaster with their latest full-length Satan Spits on Children of Light. This is a blend of, I want to say, like black metal, punk, and occult rock. Like it sounds like they took influences from Motorhead, Christian Death, and Abigail, and kind of just put it in a blender, and this is what you get, is stuff like this. And honestly, I was so tempted to just, you know, glide right over this release, because I mean the band's name is kind of generic, Devilmaster. It's put out through Relapse, which again, I was like, a black metal band through Relapse, okay. And really the only reason why I gave this even a chance is just the artwork is just so colorful and vibrant. I just, you know, it piqued my interest enough just from the artwork, and I'm glad it did. Because honestly, it's very energetic, and the riffs on here are very menacing but insanely melodic, but doesn't lack any of that high velocity kind of aggression you would expect from a band blending all those genres together. Tracks on here like Christ's Last Hiss, and my personal favorite track, Her Thirsty Whip, definitely bring the goods with this release. But yeah, other than that, I'm pretty sure there's still copies widely available through Relapse, so if you want it, get it there. So you have artwork, backside, comes on a standard black vinyl, my edition, but double-sided poster, so one side is of the band logo with the devil's face, and the other side is of the band themselves, which that looks so insanely fucking goofy, and I absolutely love it. Once again, another record I've yet to ever show on my channel. that came in about a month and a half ago, and just so happens that it fits within this part. So next up is Devourment with their legendary debut full-length album, Molesting the Decapitated. For a lot of brutal death metal fans, this is an album that basically set the bar for what brutal death metal should be. And I've noticed that a lot of people that typically don't really care for, slam, brutal death metal, find a lot of enjoyment with this album. And I don't know, it's definitely a very well-written album. It's a very pulverizing album. And I feel like it's just the fact that it's just so bare bones, just kind of got like that ground and pound attitude to it, which is just basically hit you over the head with a sledgehammer of just brutality, and that's it. Like, there's nothing fancy here, from the vocals, the riffs, the drums. Everything is just so brooding. Everything just feels like, hey, we want to make just ungodly, ugly, obese, heavy riffs and, slams. That's basically what this album is from start to finish. And I think because of that, that's why it wins over so many fans, is because it set the bar for what so many other bands would just basically try to copy. And it's got like such a raw and great production to it that just complements, like, again, the slams and riffs going on here. Tracks on here, of course, like Choking on Bile, which is the fan favorite, the title track, Molesting the Decapitated, Self-Disembowelment, Fuck to Death, all just such friendly sounding track titles are just great examples of what this album gives you in terms of just setting the bar for brutal death metal. And just so happy to see that it finally got an LP pressing put out through a Corpse Grizzle, and this shit sold out so fast. And I remember staying up like around midnight when it was going to be released on the Bandcamp to get this, because it just sold out so quickly, and I don't blame people for buying it up. But anyway, as for the laid-on packaging, you have this wonderful looking artwork right here. Backside with the band logo and band members. Comes with an insert sheet and lyrics on the other side. As for the LP variant, it's limited to 500 copies on 5 different colors, all limited to 100 copies. And I was able to get the orange vinyl pressing, again obviously limited to 100 copies, which looks pretty cool. The only other release I have by Devourment is their latest full-length from 2019, that being Obscene Majesty. I've come to the realization that, in my personal view, Devourment truly works at their peak when they have Ruben on vocals. He works so well for the band that his vocal style basically fits like a glove for the band. Because all the previous vocalists that they've had, as talented as they are, I'm not taking anything away from them, they kind of just have like all these different pitches and sounds that they'll utilize with their vocals that, yeah, it's cool on paper, but for Devourment's songwriting, as basic and primitive as it is, it just doesn't work that well in my personal view. Because Devourment, again, their riffs and slams are just, ground and pound, just aggression, nothing fancy. And Ruben's vocals are just nothing fancy. It's just always that deep guttural pitch, and that's it. So, which is why I say it fits like a glove. So with Ruben on vocals, it works for them so well on here. But another thing too that makes this album just so awesome is the production value is just so harsh and raw that I remember seeing people, say and compare it to that it's basically like the brutal death metal version of Portal, which obviously that's going to win me over. But yeah, overall, just such an awesome release. It's the only thing Devourment's ever done that, in my personal view, rivals the debut full length right here. And so, such an awesome album that needs to be heard. Every single track on here stands out. So yeah, another great place to start if you want to get into brutal death metal that just basically destroys all the bands that show up on the whole Slam Worldwide YouTube channel. But anyway, this was put out through Relapse. Not sure if it's still available, but I would highly recommend checking it out and getting it if it still is. So you have artwork, backside, comes with an insert sheet, one side with artwork, other side with the band photo, folds out with all lyrics, which, I mean, basically impossible to keep up with the lyrics, how Ruben's vocals are just so fucking guttural, but yeah, still neat that they include it. And this vinyl edition comes on like this red, cranberry, and gray color swirl. I believe limited to 300 copies. Aw yeah! Next up is my album of the year for 2019, and that would be Diabolic Night with the debut full-length Beyond the Realm. Oh, it's such an ass-kicking album. Like, it is so ass-kicking that if I were to ever make a video about the top 10 most ass-kicking albums, as much of a Loudwire type of title as that comes off like, this would be number one, because Jesus Christ, this album is just so ferocious, and in my personal view, like one of the best albums I've ever heard to blend both black metal and speed metal together. Like, oh, if you're a fan of Midnight, for the love of God, you need to listen to this. And I've noticed what makes Diabolic Night really special is not only is the songwriting just top notch, but he doesn't limit himself to just one influence. Because there's a lot of tracks on here that remind me a lot of Running Wild mixed with like Niflheim, mixed with like Merciful Fate. Like those three bands, the influence on this album is just undeniable, and it's so awesome. Tracks on here like Sovereign of Doom, Crescent Moon Rise, Beyond the Realm, my personal favorite track, Infernal Power, which it should be against the law to make a track just sound that ass-kicking. Like Infernal Power is like the workout song for me. Like, I can't stress that enough. You need to check out the track Infernal Power. And again, Reach for the Night and the closing track Dissension into Dying Spears. Just, it's a perfect 10 out of 10 for me. I typically don't appraise like speed metal all that much, but this is like some of the best stuff I've ever heard. And I was anticipating this release for the longest time because I remember checking out again, the track Infernal Power that was originally put out on a 7-inch back in like, I think 2015, and ever since then I was just anticipating for a full length, and it finally came with this. And again, I know I'm giving it a lot of praise, but it's just, if you're a fan of either Running Wild, Niflheim, or Merciful Fate, you'll find something about this album that'll really click with you. But yeah, put out through High Roller Records. Pretty sure they still have copies readily available there. I've also seen Hell's Headbangers carry copies, so that's another distro you can check out. But yeah, just definitely a must listen, again, if you're a fan of speed metal. So you have artwork, backside of the track listings, the one sole member right there who does all the vocals and guitar work other than the drums. Comes with an A3 poster of the artwork, printed in her sleeve with lyrics on one side and the two band members on the other. And this vinyl edition comes on gold, limited to 200 copies. The last three records are all by the same band that I can honestly say, out of everything within black metal, this is some of the most underrated stuff for the genre that just doesn't get all the praise that it deserves. And we started off with the debut by Diabolical Masquerade, that being Raven Dusk in My Heart. Let me just start off by saying thank you, Peaceville, for finally repressing this about a year ago, because I've been wanting it for so long, and the only variants that were available were a picture disc, which no, and Profound Lore had a copy back like, I think 2009 or something, that goes for like $100 on Discogs. So I was always just like never really having any interest in buying this, but thankfully Peaceville did a repress, so I'm pretty sure there are still copies on Peaceville's web store. But yeah, Diabolical Masquerade, a one-man project done by Blakeham, who I think just kind of had a fallout with this project. Like, he's always promised he's going to get back into it, but never does. And I get the fact that he has other, projects that he's a part of. I know his main thing is Catatonia, which, being a part of a band that big is obviously going to pay the bills a bit more than something like Diabolical Masquerade. But easily for me, out of all the work he's ever done, his best stuff within his musical career all stems from Diabolical Masquerade, because it is just so incredible. Because I guess you could call this symphonic black metal, but it doesn't really stop there. Like, there's elements also of thrash metal. There's quite a lot actually of experimentation that I really can't tell you exactly what Diabolical Masquerade sounds like. Like, I really have no band to compare it to, and I think that's what makes it just such a standout, and it's really special. Also, that could be kind of like its Achilles heel, because it's just like, how do you really describe Diabolical Masquerade? I really cannot tell you a band that sounds like this, that's kind of like relevant or something similar, that's familiar to a black metal fan. Either way, I think that's why I really like Diabolical Masquerade a lot. And seriously, guys, you need to check this out if you like. Again, it's kind of symphonic black metal, but at other parts it's like melodic black metal. So if you like either of those subgenres, you gotta listen to this. But yeah, again, like as I stated, Peaceville still has copies readily available. As for the layout and packaging, you have artwork, backside with track listings. Comes on a printed inner sleeve. Each side just has lyrics. And this vinyl edition comes on semi-translucent blood red vinyl. Then I have the sophomore full-length by Diabolical Masquerade, that being the Phantom Lodge. I would say out of the 4 full-lengths Blackham did with this project, I hate to say this is probably my least favorite, because all the symphonic experimentation that's utilized more predominantly on the other 3 full lengths is kind of used quite minimal here. Like, this album just overall, from what I remember listening to, it's kind of like a really thrashy melodic black metal album with hints and bits and pieces of keyboards kind of spread out sporadically throughout this album. And that's really it. So as good as it is overall, because I truly feel like Diabolical Masquerade never really has a bad album, for me it's kind of like an easy spot to put as my least favorite, because all the exciting experimentation isn't really found all that much here. But, you know, that's just my opinion, I guess, with it. Either way, this is quite an easy record to get, as, again, distros like Hell's Headbangers, Iron Bonehead should still carry copies. But yeah, as for the layout and packaging, you have the artwork, backside with the track listings. Comes on a standard black vinyl, but it is with a printed inner sleeve with lyrics and Blackham on one side, and the same deal on the other. And the final record for this part, again, just happens to be one of my all-time favorites within black metal. That actually, it was in my top 10 when I did my video for my top 25 all-time favorite black metal albums list. And that would be the 3rd full length by Diabolical Masquerade, Nightwork. Everything about this album is just so spectacular. Like, Blackham truly outdid himself with his creativity on this album. Like, again, it's symphonic black metal, but like, it's not just that. It's like, I've heard people call it avant-garde symphonic black metal, like all in one take, and I guess you could call it that because there's a lot going on here, but it's just written so well. Tracks on here like Riders on the Bone, The Skeleton Keys to the Dead, This Ghoulmate Omen, and my favorite track, The Eerie Obsidian Circus, has just such wonderful, incredible writing. Like, again, there's like symphonic elements with the keyboards that are just very mesmerizing and very energetic. The riffs on here are insanely melodic and ripping. Blakeham's vocal performance is just truly ass-kicking, along with the fact too you got oh, what's his name? This is quite embarrassing, I don't even know his name. Dan Swano, yeah, Dan Swano on being the producer with this album, that truly adds to the melodies being played out here. Just, there's literally nothing to complain about with this album. It is just truly a work of art within the realms of black metal, and I had to own this. Sadly, though, this is the repress from Peaceville back in 2014, and I gotta say, whoever did the layout for this is quite dumb. Because, I mean, look at the artwork, okay? The band logo is right there. Who decided to make the same color as the logo as the artwork, and it blends right in with it? Like, who decided this? You should be fired, because that is such a dumb idea. Like, it blends right in. You can't even see the damn thing. Whereas the first press, I believe it was put out through Profound Lore, if I'm not mistaken. It didn't have the band logo or the album title, and it just had this artwork, which I think fits it way better. But I'm nitpicking really pointless shit, but I always complained about that. Again, just who decides to put the logo as the same color as the artwork and blend it right in with it to the point that you can't even see it? Such a dumb move. But other than that, other side is of just other artwork with track listings. Standard black vinyl, but comes on a printed inner sleeve with Blakem on one side and Blakem again on the other. All right. Wow, I keep seeming to do that always for the last take with every vinyl part, but yeah, all right. That's it for this vinyl collection part. Like always, links will be provided to everything I've talked about in the description below, and like always, as I do that with my mouth and say that, and that's that. So like always, guys, make sure you guys drink plenty of water to stay hydrated, and have a great day.